Let's talk Florida State predictions.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I'm your host, Brian Smith. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate everybody stopping in to hang out. Today's show is going to be fun because we're going to talk all things Florida State football predictions, and it's going to be all about what you think, not just what I think. We'll talk about that next here at Locked On Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, predictions. Win-loss record. You're going to have opportunities to talk about whether or not a certain player reaches a certain barrier statistically. Going to talk about team averages, a little bit of everything. Some of these I have put up at the X handle, Locked On Seminoles. That's capital L, capital O, _ Seminoles with a capital S. I've got a few questions there on polls, but I'm going to go in depth a little bit, ask a question. By all means, if you want to throw out an answer on the YouTube channel, I'd love it. I love discussing all things Florida State football. But again, just think about the questions that I asked more than anything else. Where would you rank guys? What kind of yardage, statistical goals are they going to hit? Let's talk about it now. First off, which Florida State receiver leads in yards? At first, when I thought about these questions, I thought, well, everybody's going to say Malik Benson, but I'm not sure on that. I think he'll catch the most balls, and he is a deep threat, but I also think they're going to hit him with a lot of screens just to try to give him a chance to wiggle loose because he does have big-time speed. Will he lead the team in receptions? Will he lead the team in yards? Will he lead the team in touchdowns? Those are all things you can discuss. But specifically here, yards. I think Ja'Kai Douglas has a great chance to lead the team in catches if he's the starter and he stays healthy because he knows the offense so well. And he was productive in the one game last season when Keon and Johnny were both out. He had 115 yards against Pitt on the road. So he can do it. We don't know Kentron, maybe it's Hakeem, but we're not sure exactly how they're going to play it at the boundary spot. And maybe they move guys around anyway. But one of those guys is possible as well. That's why you play the games. But predictions are still predictions. If it's not Benson, which guy would you say comes in second? That's another question to look at. I think Florida State has enough depth there. It'll take care of itself, but that's important. Second part with the receivers. Will there be a definitive guy that is the red zone player / go-to to get to the end zone? Who's going to lead them in touchdowns from the wide receiver position? This one, I honestly don't know. I think if I still had to guess, I'd say Malik leads them in receptions, although Ja'Kai might. Yards is really hard. I haven't decided on that one personally. But touchdowns may be the hardest yet. It's really hard because this is a really new receiver group in terms of being in the forefront. Not new necessarily being at Florida State, but last year two guys dominated the reps. We know who they are. They're both in the National Football League now. Which guy's the red zone threat for Florida State? You not only lost two elite players, they were big guys that were jump ball nightmares for opposing defenses. You can't just replace that. So you can't count a tight end here. I'll get to that in a second. I'm going to talk about tight ends a little bit. But if you just have one guy, who would it be that's going to be the most likely guy to catch touchdowns for the Noles? That's not an easy one. I haven't personally decided on that. I'd like to hear a little more from Norvell, but I know he's probably not going to give very much. He never does during these press conferences. It'd be kind of cool if it was one of the fifth-year seniors, Darion, Ja'Kai, somebody like that, ends up being the money man in the red zone no matter how they do it. You may see Florida State run some screens to get Douglas the ball from like the 12 because he can make three guys miss and score. It's hard to say. As long as the ball goes across the goal line, it's all that matters. So the wide receiver position, that's why I started with it, it's hard to project. Excuse me. Now, going to running back. Which running back leads in total rushing touchdowns? Last year, just as a refresher, Benson had 14 touchdowns. Obviously, he's going on to the National Football League. He only had 156 carries. So just over every 11 times he touched the ball, he put the ball in the end zone. That's incredible. I also think that even though Tofili had 4, that's a bit of a misnomer. Jordan Travis had 7 because in the red zone, they let him run a little bit. And of course, sometimes he just took off because he's so gifted. Some of those touchdowns are going to be different. They had 32, I believe it was, as a team. Yeah, 32 touchdowns last year on the ground. That's a great number. I'm going to say that Tofili leads them in rushing touchdowns, but I'm not super confident in that. The reason is the depth chart is so good at Florida State. There could be other opportunities, especially like if Tofili goes out and they've got a couple easier games, there could be a running back that gets 5 touchdowns in 2 games. Like Rodell could be the guy. Maybe it's Keziah. It's hard to say, but I'm going to say Tofili, and I'm going to say he gets 8 rushing touchdowns, and they have 3 more guys with at least 4. I think it's going to be more balanced. And here's the wild card. This could be skewed a little bit. I'm not sure how they're going to do this. You're talking about DJ Uiagalelei's 250, give or take. If they're inside the 5, I don't know how much they'll use read option, quarterback draw, whatever. And then, of course, there's the quarterback sneak. But he's a big guy. He might score some rushing touchdowns too and kind of dispel the notion that Florida State's going to have a 10-touchdown guy from the running back position. And that's okay. Balance is important. So it's not the total number individually. It's about winning. I still think that at some point, DJ is going to have a game where he has 1 or 2 touchdowns that are really important on the ground and not just throwing the football. Here's the other one, because Florida State did such a good job with this last year. Which running back for the Noles leads them in receiving touchdowns? If I remember right, Tofili had a 50-yarder last year. Off the top of my head, I'll have to look it up and see how many they had as a team, which guys like hit the big plays. But if I remember right, they were pretty good at catching the football out of the backfield. And Jalen Lucas is certainly that guy. I know Rodell can catch. This could be a team that Florida State not only just does traditional screens, they might have some guys that line up in the slot beyond Lucas. Tofili could certainly do it. But I'm curious to see who else does. Benson had 20 catches last year in the score. Tofili had the 1 score on 21 catches. Not sure exactly how they'll do it, but I'd imagine that they're going to find Jalen Lucas a way to get the ball. He's too athletic and he's such a burner. I don't care how you list him. He's just as much a slot, really, as he is a running back. But they're going to find a way to use him in that role. And don't be surprised if somebody like Keziah Holmes or somebody else, he had a couple touchdowns, finds a way to get the football to mix it up. Sam Singleton could be somebody else. Very deep running back room. I'm not sure how it would go. I would still say Tofili because he's the veteran in the room that knows the offense the best, but it's not out of the question. A couple other guys could challenge for that. So something else to think about. Let's move on to the tight end situation. 2 questions there. Number 1, Florida State doesn't have the deepest tight end room in terms of just like guys that have played a ton, but they got some talent there. Like nobody really talks anything about Jackson West, but he's hung around. He's in his 4th year in the program. You got Kyle Morlock, who's a redshirt senior. These are guys that have been through it. And then you got a guy like Landon Thomas coming up. They could do a lot of different things here at tight end. So first question, how many guys do you think will be a part of the rotation? Just put that in there to help yourself on these next 2. I went back and forth on this, but I think the first 3 guys I mentioned, there could be somebody else too, but those 3 guys will play. So with that, which guy is able to catch 30 passes individually? Will it be Morlock? I would assume so, I think. But if he gets banged up, could it be Jackson West, or will they all just play so much everybody gets like 15 to 25 and nobody gets to 30? Again, Florida State likes to spread the ball around. I would be surprised if it wasn't much more than last year, because even though they had the 2 big receivers, Jaheim Bell was a really good flex tight end / H-back. He caught a lot of balls too. They're not going to be as dominant with their feature players this year. I think that's pretty safe. So I put 30 down there, but it may be too high a total. You could argue that. If I had to guess, I'll say Morlock would end up with 30 to 40 catches, but they may spread it around a little more than that. Maybe I'm wrong. What do you think? Number 2, is there going to be a touchdown guy? Again, kind of like the goal line situation. Is it Morlock? Do they use somebody like Landon Thomas, who's just ridiculously athletic, the freshman out of Colquitt County in Georgia? That's possible. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't care who it is, as long as the player is able to make big plays. And that's truly the key. Can you make big plays over and over again and be consistent in the red zone? You can't drop touchdown passes, etc. If you do that, it changes games. So if they trust Landon, that's possible because he's probably the most athletic of the group, if I was to guess. That kid is freakish. I remember him as a freshman in high school. It's like, okay, this is obvious. He's going to be a big-time player. So we'll see. But I think Florida State will have plenty of options there. You could argue any of those guys being the main one for the touchdowns for the Noles. Coming up next, we're going to go over some more questions, talking about Florida State's offense. And we're going to get into some defensive questions. What are your predictions for the Florida State Seminoles? That's next here on Locked On Seminoles. Have you downloaded the Gametime app yet to get the best deals on concerts, going to events like Major League Baseball or a Florida State football game? With these kinds of opportunities to get tickets faster and easier, prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first opportunity to see the game or whatever event you go to. Killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets and anything else that you would want. The app also has features like customize your spot, and it's an opportunity to supplement in any way you want to use this app. You can find out what you want. Once you get in there, you can move around very quickly. You can type in Atlanta Braves, you can type in Florida State Seminoles, get in there and figure it out. Zone deals. If you buy something from a certain part of this app, you'll get even better special pricing. And again, concerts. You can go to a play. You can go to a movie. You can go to sporting events, a lot of different things. So take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets or anything else with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. Also, something I've been trying to do is get in better shape and eating better. A way you can do it is with Factor Meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for all the things that you want to do with chef-created meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor Fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons, you've got a lot of different things you can try each week. You always have new flavors to explore. Make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. Stay fueled with all these nutritious options. So head over to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOn50 to get 50% off your first box with 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your television each day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting that's going on? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. Free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or free on the Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So let's break back into all the opportunities here with Florida State statistics. There's a million ways we could do it. If you want to add any, by the way, and just throw it out there on the YouTube channel as a question or something, be happy to do it. And once again, thank for everybody for joining in today. Truly appreciate it. Hit that like button and that notification bell. Next, last season, Florida State, their rushing total went down. Part of that was Jordan Travis didn't run as much. Will the Noles, I'm going to go a little higher than what they averaged last year, will they average 175 yards or more rushing? They were in the 150 range last year. It's probably too low, to be honest. I'm going to say they're going to go over because I don't think DJ is going to really just throw it all over the lot. I think they'll be balanced. They got a bevy of running backs. And for the love of mankind, the offensive line has to be healthier than it was last year. They just didn't have any continuity, even though they had a pretty experienced group. You can't have that many guys in and out of the lineup, even in practice. So I'm going over. Now, if you want to say that it'll be a little bit lower because DJ's not the runner that Jordan Travis is, I get it. But that's my pick. Secondly, if they go over 200, this is a bonus question, I'm just kind of off the fly. If they go over 200 yards, is it a sign that Florida State is more apt to make the college football playoff? I think it would be, because that means they can be dominant, especially in the red zone. That's just more yardage, more opportunities to run the ball. So that's something to think. Next, which Florida State football player leads the team in sacks? The first thing that I think of, well, it's going to be Patrick Payton. What about Marvin Jones? What about Jackson? What about a guy like DJ Lundy, who they're probably going to blitz quite a bit because he's an elite tackler? He's not going to miss many opportunities in the backfield. A team that has a coordinator that's been around a while, a bunch of guys with experience on defense at high level of athleticism in general, they're going to come after the quarterback. I will be surprised as a unit if Florida State doesn't hit 40 sacks. They were under that last year. I think it was 35, somewhere around there, but I could be wrong. I'll have to look that up. But, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they pushed 50 this year. I know that's a high total, but Florida State's depth has went up quite a bit. Let's see where they were last year. They were pretty high. Florida State was at 46, so I was way off. They were 46. If they could get above that, that would certainly help. And I know they're losing a first-round pick before anybody says in the comments. It's just that you don't know where it's coming from. Farmer, Jackson in the middle. They've got the transfer from Colorado State. They got guys coming up like Lions. They have so much depth at D tackle. It's going to be hard to run the ball. You're going to have more pass rushing opportunities. I think they'll be good with their blitz schemes. Lundy will be able to help some of the young guys, and they are fast at linebacker. And the coverage is going to be good. A lot of the opportunities with sacks to truly go at a high number as a team is because your coverage units are good. Whether it's your nickel package, your base package, your dime, whatever, they're going to give the D-line and the front seven in general a time, maybe just that half second longer to get to the opposing quarterback, and that matters. So I think 46 is obtainable, but if I had to guess, that's one that's going to need a lot of good health. That's the key there too. They have more health on defense last year than offense. That's for sure. Next, biggest surprise player on defense. I went through this, and it took me 5 minutes to even come close because they have so much depth. And I'm looking at a depth chart right now, like a first guy off the bench, somebody like that. I'm going to go with Quindarius Jones, the defensive back out of Mississippi. Kid that was, quite honestly, just completely under-recruited. Florida State went after him. They took him. Nobody else at the high level wanted him, and he immediately played. So, again, Florida State's evaluation is good. And they got to have a guy that spells players like Thomas and Cypress. You can't play all the reps. You're also going to need him to play a lot of reps anyway because you're playing spread teams, and nobody runs two wide receivers anymore. So he's going to be rotating in and out in different kinds of situations. That's my pick. Wouldn't be surprised if it was Ashton Barker or somebody else. But I think one of the secondary guys could be that player. It'd be great if it was a Mary Cooper because that guy is going to be helping out Earl Little and some of the other. I think he could probably play corner too, no problem. But he might be a nickel. I'm curious to see how they do that. Is it going to be Knowles? Are they going to do something different? They're going to put Rawls there. They need to have somebody behind Earl Little. It would be great if the backup was really, really good because nickel is a super hard spot to play. Next, reserve defensive back that has the biggest impact, meaning statistically like leads them in picks or has the most pass breakups that's not a starter. That one's different between value. Similar question to what I just asked, but it's about value. Who's the guy that the other team, when they prepare for Florida State after, let's say, 2-3 games, we don't want it. When he comes into the game, this is a guy that's a playmaker. We're more apt to go to the other side of the field. That's what coaches do at corners. They see somebody come in that's not that good, they will immediately change what they do and throw at them, especially at the NFL level because there's so few guys like that. They find one. They'll throw it every play. I don't think Florida State has a guy you can pick on in the second group, at least not in my opinion. Edwin Josephs, Jones, some of these guys, they're young. They're like second-year players, but they're just really athletic and gifted football players that are being coached by Sertan. I mean, it's an elite combination. I don't know which one will have the best stats, but again, I would probably go Jones because he's got the length I think he's the most likely because of his arm length, being a taller guy, to get PBUs. But I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being Edwin Joseph, really quick corner, played at Chaminade Madonna in South Florida. That's a heck of a football player. Next, will Florida State surpass 34.6 points per game? Before you answer that, 2 points. Number one, the bowl game counted towards that total last year. If you took it out, it would be a lot higher because they scored 3 points in the bowl game. 2, you also have to consider if they make the playoff, you don't even know how many games they're going to play. So depth matters, how you play games. Every team in college football is going to be different with depth. To think they have a chance to make a run, come hell, come high water, these teams are going to have to find a way to rotate in, even when they absolutely don't want to, against better teams, because their ultimate goal is to go as far as they can, and you absolutely must take off snaps from some of these kids all the way through the season. You can't have guys playing 700 snaps and then start the playoff. You have no chance. Zero. And I'm talking about like corners and stuff like you just can't. They have to come out. So the defense might give up a few more yards this year in some capacity because they're trying to rotate guys in and out. Does that hurt your offense? Something to think about. It also works in reverse too. Like when the offense is on the field, they might be playing a team that's really good and they're rotating. This makes it much more metally to me, meddled up to figure out, because 34.6 isn't bad, but they were close to 40 if they'd have had a good playoff or a bowl game against Georgia. But that's obviously didn't happen. I think this team could push 38 points per game. I'm going to say over, but if you don't, I get it because it's a new offense. It's a little bit different. They don't have a running quarterback. It's something to think about. Final question. Last season, Florida State's defense was really good, and this is more of a general across-the-board question for you. Will it be ranked top 10 nationally in total defense? What I mean by that is total yards you allow rushing and total yards passing combined. I don't think that's out of the realm. I think this is a more balanced group. I know they don't have Jared Verse, which obviously you'd like to have him back, but I don't look at a spot on the defense and go, man, if I'm the coordinator for the other school on any given Saturday, I'm going after that guy. Or this spot has no depth. Or this spot is, you know what I mean? They've got something there. They've got an athlete, maybe not the most experienced guy, but they don't have anything here. It's like, it's obvious who they're going after. Florida State has reached that point. I think being a national top 10 defense is within reach. And it could be a situation where even if they don't make it, it would be close. We'll see how that goes. But I think it's feasible to get that. To wrap up the show, I want to talk a little bit about a few fan bases that you might find annoying. Just kind of a fun wrap up to the show. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Seminoles. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This is pretty straightforward here on the final part of the show today on Locked On Seminoles. Besides the obvious, Florida State fans don't like Florida fans in Miami. That's a given. Which fan bases drive you the most crazy, whether it's on social media, whether it's the guy that is at your office, your local neighbor? Is it because of a bowl game you went to when Florida State played? Whatever it is. Maybe it's UCF. I don't know. Which fan base do you find to be the most annoying to you? Is there more than one? Here are a few experiences that I've had, and I've covered college football in a million different ways, especially with recruiting. And this is my own storyline, so you can take it for whatever it's worth. I've had bad experiences with pretty much every fan base in some way, shape, or form. Don't get it twisted. But these are the ones that I found the most obnoxious in general. So take it for what it's worth. Ohio State fans, that is a cult. Period. Cult. They are absolutely able to eat their own young at any time, any place, anywhere. They think Ryan Day is a terrible coach. The guy is winning like 88% of his games. He is not. They also think that there's no way they can lose games. They wanted to fire Ryan Day after he lost the national championship to Georgia one year. Or it was Georgia, Alabama, whatever it was. Like, they got beat by Georgia a couple years ago when the guy missed a kick. That was Ryan Day's fault too. It's ridiculous. They are my number one, no doubt, worst fan base in college football. Number two, similar fashion, but with a little more niceness because it's down south, it's LSU. That fan base and that culture in general, especially in southern Louisiana, there's a major difference between southern and northern Louisiana. Culturally, they don't look at anything outside the deep south pocket of southern Louisiana. Didn't happen there. It didn't happen at all. So LSU football, everything that those kids do, it's scrutinized in a way that's really odd. I don't know any other place on earth like southern Louisiana, some good, some bad, but those folks look at things through a very narrow tunnel, and it drives me bananas. They're hard on everything to each other. They all argue about everything, but they do love their Tigers. I'll give them that. So, and then finally, this one is, I haven't experienced it personally at a game, never been to Kyle Field, but Texas A&M. I even heard somebody say on another podcast, I think it's called Necessary Roughness. The gal's an A&M grad. She said, we're a cult. She's a grad and said that. That is not a good sign. It's never good to admit it. And she, the way she said it, like she liked it. Like, that's a little concerning. But A&M fans, they think they're the greatest thing ever. They've had one winning season of 10 or more wins in the last 20 years. What are you guys excited about? They've just not been that good, and they never get over the hump. They haven't won a title since Bear Bryant was there, and that's before Bear was at Alabama. I don't get it. So whatever, I'm glad they're proud of their institution. Nothing wrong with that. But their expectations are a little bit funky. Take it for what it's worth. So with that, if you have any comments about other schools, just leave message, whatever, on YouTube. I'm curious to hear what you all have to say, because we've all certainly had our own experiences. It is wild with college football fans. Everybody's got a story to tell. This has been Locked On Seminoles. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Look forward to seeing you all here again tomorrow. Take care.